Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mac. Boys and girls, put on your Pursuity parkas today because we're going to Greenland, where incidentally, I am going to start a puffin ranch. It's as majestic as it sounds. But sadly, it is not going to come to fruition. This is from the POTUS. Denmark is a very special country with incredible people, but based on Prime Minister Mette Frederikson's comment that she would have no interest in discussing the purchase of Greenland, I will be postponing our meeting scheduled in 2 weeks for another time. The Prime Minister was able to save a great deal of expense and effort for both the United States and Denmark by being so direct. I thank her for that, and I look forward to rescheduling sometime in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, over the last 48 hours, my life was filled with puffins and purpose. Puffinful purpose. Purposeful puffins. And sadly, that is not going to happen. So I guess we'll just have to get pursuity on something else. All right, I might not get my puffin ranch as soon as I had hoped, but we can still look into why POTUS was looking to buy this thing in the first place. Why was POTUS going after Greenland? Well, let's go to some of the obvious reasons here. This is from 2013, Science.Time.com. And the title is Ecocentric, All Things Green from Conservation to Capitol Hill, which means everything that you read from here on is going to be probably about global warming. A newly discovered underground lake in Greenland will help us understand climate change. An aquifer bigger than West Virginia has been found underneath the ice in Greenland. What that means for the rising seas. And an aquifer is fur with water all over it. The Earth may be more than 4.5 billion years old, but it can still surprise us. Scientists have discovered a gigantic liquid water reservoir underneath Greenland's massive ice sheet. The discovery was reported in an article in this week's edition of Nature Geoscience, uncovered accidentally by a team of glaciologists who were drilling ice cores in southeastern Greenland in 2011. The aquifer is more than 27,000 square miles large, bigger than West Virginia, according to data from NASA's Operation Icebridge radar. And until recently, no one had any idea it was there. That's because on the surface, at least, it shouldn't be there. Temperatures in Greenland are well below freezing most of this year, and that is why the island is covered by a sheet of ice that is more than a mile, 1.6 kilometers thick. Yet, when the glaciologists drilling in 2011, led by the University of Utah's Rick Forster, extracted their deep ice cores, they were surprised to find them dripping with liquid water, despite temperatures that were below zero. Later research carried out in April 2013 with Laura Koenig, a glaciologist with NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, found that the temperature in the aquifer stayed about 32 degrees Fahrenheit, just above freezing. It's possible that the heavy snow cover in southeastern Greenland may act as insulation for the aquifer, a literal blanket of snow preventing it from freezing. Okay, so is that what it's all about? Is it all about just discovering this melting down aquifer? Is that what all this is for? Well, let's dig a little deeper, shall we? This is from the Diplomat.com from March of 2018. Since China began to deepen its engagement with the Arctic region over the past decade, culminating in the publication of the country's first white paper on the region in January this year, much global attention regarding Chinese Arctic interests has centered on Sino-Russian cooperation, including joint ventures in Siberian fossil fuel development and the opening of the Northern Sea Route to Chinese cargo traffic. However, there is another part of the Arctic that has also become a focal point of Beijing's evolving Arctic diplomacy, namely Greenland. As the massive ice sheet on the island continues to erode, along with surrounding sea ice, Greenland's emerging economic potential has caught the attention of many countries. But China has been distinct with its economic economic diplomacy in Greenland, which is not only including emerging mining opportunities, but also in the areas of infrastructure, planning, tourism, and scientific cooperation. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark and the centerpiece for Danish interests in the Arctic. In 2009, the island achieved self-rule, meaning that most governmental portfolios are under Greenlandic jurisdiction, save for defense and foreign affairs. Remember that. China's Greenlandic engagement has sparked concerns in Copenhagen and may factor in the looming question, of whether Greenland opts for full independence in the coming years. But here's the deal here. Chinese firms have sought to invest in Greenland's emerging mineral wealth, which is becoming more readily accessible due to climate change. The most visible example is the rare earth elements uranium and zinc mining under development by Kvanfjeld, I don't know if I'm saying that right, probably not, by Australian firm Greenland Minerals and Energy in cooperation with Chinese Shanga Resources. In Greenland's far north, a zinc mine is planned at Fjord, which would be overseen by Perth-based Ironbark, which signed a memorandum of understanding with China Non-Ferrous Metal to assist with that project's development. As well, General Nice, a Hong Kong-based company, currently hold the right to a potential iron mine at Isua in western Greenland. The same company ran afoul of the Danish government when it attempted to purchase an abandoned U.S.-built naval facility at Grønlandal, only to be blocked by Copenhagen. According to reports revealed in April 2017, there were concerns the sale might offend the United States, which still operates a military base at Thule in North Greenland. Okay, so now it's getting interesting. And right now, I'm also getting a lot of emails complaining about how I pronounced that whole paragraph. Well, I joked on Twitter a little while back about Greenland being a great location for Space Force. And maybe I wasn't so wrong. I'm over here at militarybases.com. Thule Air Force Base in Thule, Greenland. Let's check it out. Located more than 1,100 kilometers north from the Arctic Circle and about 1,500 kilometers away from the North Pole, Thule Air Force Base is the northernmost military base located of the United States of America. It is located in the eastern part of Greenland. Aside from its military purpose, the base is placed into a piece of paradise on Earth. The area is the only place on Earth where 3 glaciers get together, not to mention about the impressive sightseeing with icebergs and polar animals like the puffins. The polar puffins. The main mission of this unusual military base is to provide missile warning operations. At the time, it deals with the general space control. Aside from being the northernmost base of the USA, the place is also the most northernmost port in the world. It sees over 3,000 flights every year. How about that? So this place is pretty important, this polar puffin place. Military forces have hung around this area even since it was discovered by the British explorers. Both the base and the mountain close to it were named after a popular British Viscount, Robert Dundas. However, the first military construction was authorized in the summer of 1941. Therefore, the base was initially opened during World War II. The place was mostly used to provide weather information during the war through a multitude of stations. Many of them were run by the Danish forces and were intensively used during Operation Overlord. After World War II ended, the Americans managed to observe the necessity of a more complete and advanced center in the area, especially when it came to carrying atomic bombs. In just a few years, the site became a very strategical point of the USA, but it was without a clear owner, the United States of America or Denmark. In the end, NATO stepped in and asked for the new base to be part of the NATO defense system, while the Americans and the Danish had to deal with the operational issues on their own. So it gives a little perspective as to why POTUS might be trying to purchase this place, even in just a casual fashion, right? The official construction of an advanced military base began in 1951. Due to the harsh weather conditions and the improper environment, it took the builders 2 years to finish it. They were living on the ships that transported them until the headquarters was up. It is said that the building this base was at least as complicated as building the Panama Canal. I imagine so, because they couldn't fuel it, and that's why they decided to go ahead and make it nuclear powered. And of course, there's tons and tons of tunnels under there. And of course, we also know that there's this underwater aquifer. So I think you see what's going on. There's a lot going on. It looks like underneath Greenland. Do we have another China Lake situation? I'm not really sure, but I'm sure if they built advanced construction back in 1951, I'd have a hard time believing that it ever really stopped and that they actually left it alone, right? Units spread over 14 time zones in 6 different countries. The 21st Space Wing is currently the host unit at Thule Air Force Base. It includes 3 groups: medical, mission support, and operations, and the staff agencies. All right, very interesting stuff. Okay, so here we got this Air Force base that hosts the 21st Space Division. This is all part of NORAD, and of course they've got tunnels underneath. We know that it's nuclear powered, and we know it's been around for a long, long time. We also know that there's not a lot that we know about the place. We also know that there is an aquifer down there. The Chinese are mining and trying to get desperately into this area too, and all of a sudden POTUS teases about joking about this place. Well, this almost sounds like we're in clown territory. And speaking of clowns, taking you back to 2011, this is from the CPH Post, and here's the title: Greenland granted investigation into CIA flights. An inquiry into CIA flights in Danish airspace over Greenland is to go ahead, but it will be far from a formal inquiry that Greenland had hoped for. Instead, the independent organization Danish Institute for International Studies, or DIIS, which we're just going to call DIS, will produce an independent report into the use of Danish airspace by the CIA. Unlike a formal inquiry, DIS will not be able to call witnesses, lay any responsibility for the flights, and will not have full access to classified information. Sounds a little bit like FISA abuse, but this is 2011. We haven't been able to get exactly what we wanted, so we have to appreciate what we have got. Greenlandic Premier, and you're going to, you know what, my Danish friends, you're just going to have to give me a hard pass for pretty much all of today. Kupik Kleist told Jyllands Posten newspaper, the alleged use of Danish airspace by the CIA to transport terrorism suspects to secret jails has been criticized by human rights groups who suspect that the suspects were subjected to inhumane treatment such as torture. How about that? Suspecting that suspects were subjected to torture. As a country that has been a forerunner in the fight against torture, Denmark has a special obligation to thoroughly investigate the way it may have been involved transport of detainees. Tue Magnuson of the United States Association told the Copenhagen Post. Evidence that the flights took place was put forth in a 2008 documentary aired on public broadcaster DR. According to the broadcast, the CIA used an airport in Narsarsuaq, Greenland, when transporting prisoners. American diplomatic cables released by WikiLeaks the same year indicated that the Danish government had turned a blind eye to these flights. Current Foreign Minister Ville, what am I supposed to even do with that right there? What am I even supposed to do with that? Savndal had initially stated that he wanted a formal inquiry into the allegations, but at a press conference outside the Foreign Ministry on Wednesday, he said there was not enough political support for such a move. I feel like I'm just getting dumber as I keep reading this here. I won't be having a formal inquiry because that is not what we promised in the common government policy, Savndal said, adding that it was important to open the case to the public and that Denmark had nothing to hide. And for all our listeners out there in Denmark, I am just so sorry. DIS will investigate the flights on behalf of the Danish and Greenlandic authorities through access to classified information. Though access to classified information will be at the discretion of the government authorities. Savndal could not give any guarantees that the investigation would have full access to all the papers. Okay, so here we got this base that we know used to house some nuclear missiles, and this was originally a part of Project IceWorm. If you want to look more into that, it was Project IceWorm. That was the original quote-unquote secret project, but we do know that they had nuclear capabilities out there. And of course, the base was nuclear powered because they couldn't be shuttling around diesel fuel. So it was kind of a necessity, right? So this has been going around for a long time. We know there's tunnels there. We know there's CIA involvement. It starts to kind of fill itself in, right? We also know about this underground aquifers. So we can only imagine really what is going on underneath there. But there's been lots and lots of theories. And we also know that a couple years after the article that I just read you, around 2013 or so, they started to figure out that some of these flights were actually going in and out of North Carolina, as well as Camp Peary. And of course, Camp Peary is our CIA farm. When we talk about the farm and CIA knuckleheads, they're all raised out there like a bunch of free-range, deep state knucklehead farm crops, right? And so we know that some of these flights were going, is about 1 in every 3 was either going from North Carolina or from there. So we know that this was heavily a clown-influenced operation. I can only imagine sub-bases and whatnot. So could this be a place where the deep state was doing some deep state knuckleheadedry? Well, we also know that some intelligence gathering was going on out there too. It was sort of under the guise of spying on Middle Eastern countries, but it looks like that possibly could have been more. And knowing what we know now, this very well could be another one of many outside the official Five Eyes chain of command kind of things, right? This could have been skirting the Five Eyes intelligence gathering system all together. So I found this very, very interesting. The theories can kind of run wild here, and maybe this was why President Trump was really talking about buying the land. Now, I also want to remind you that there's this young girl, I'm going to forget her name, Greta something, young girl who's skipping school, and she's talking about climate change and this and that. You're probably hearing about her in the news right now. Well, this is in Sweden, but I just want to point out that I find it very interesting timing that we're starting to talk about, the melting of the ice caps and this and that, and all of a sudden POTUS decides he wants to go ahead and buy Greenland. Now, if you know anything about the art of the deal, you know that more often than not, President Trump finds deals that you can walk away from, sometimes the best deal. And maybe that's all it really was to do, to just kind of bring some attention on it right now, like we're talking about. Maybe something was going on out there, maybe some illegal or outside, like I said, outside of the Five Eyes channels, surveillance going on. Who really knows? But we also know that this is a clown operation and that they were doing transport of prisoners, and could have been some torture involved, and who knows? So there's all kinds of different ideas that we can attach to this. Now, when I heard about the base in Thule, it reminded me of this. This is called the Thule Society. The Thule Society, and again, I'm going to butcher all of these names. Now I'm going to apologize to the Germans. God, it's all in one video. Originally, the Studiengruppen für Germanisch Albertum. Study Group for Germanic Antiquity is what I'm really trying to say, was a German occultist and Volkish group founded in Munich right after the World War I, named after a mythical northern country in Greek legend. And I want to point out, too, that they believe that to have been Atlantis. The society is notable chiefly as the organization that sponsored the Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, the Germans' Worker Party, which was later reorganized by Adolf Hitler into the National Socialist Germans Workers' Party. So he was actually a part of this Thule Society, right? NSDAP, or Nazi Party. According to Hitler biographer Ian Kershaw, the organization's membership list reads like a who's who of early Nazi sympathizers and leading figures in Munich. Now, the Thule Society is a pretty deep topic, and I can't give you a whole documentary on the Thule Society, but you can find documentaries on them on YouTube. So if you want to look into it, I highly suggest it. It's a pretty interesting story, but this really involves quite a bit of stuff. But here's an interesting little breakdown from AFPN.org. Thule was a legendary island in the far north, similar to Atlantis. And I think that I said it was Atlantis. I meant to say similar to Atlantis. Supposedly the center of a lost high-level civilization. But not all secrets of that civilization had been completely wiped out. Those that remained were being guarded by ancient, highly intelligent beings, similar to the masters of Theosophy or the White Brotherhood. The truly initiated could establish contact mystical rituals. The masters or ancients allegedly would be able to endow the initiated with supernatural strength and energy. With the help of these energies, the goal of the initiated was to create a race of supermen of Aryan stock who would exterminate all inferior races. That doesn't sound at all like Hitler, does it? It also does not sound at all like Jeffrey Epstein, does it? So here's what was up. They were Satanists who practiced black magic. This means that they were solely concerned with raising their consciousness by means of rituals to awareness of evil and non-human intelligences in the universe, and with achieving means of communication with these intelligences. And this is taken from a book called Ravenscroft's Spear of Destiny. Concentrate on that seemingly innocent word, rituals. Thule members practiced a form of sexual magic derived from a lodge of which Aleister Crowley was a member. Crowley was recognized as the foremost worshiper of Satan in the 19th century. The origin of this medieval magic can be traced to a Freemason, Robert Little, who founded the Societas Rosicruciana in 1865, and that is also from the Spear of Destiny. While the actual sexual perversions which were practiced are too offensive to share, the results are not. Author Ravenscroft stated that indulgence in the most sadistic rituals awaken penetrating vision into the workings of evil intelligences. Yikes! The Thule Society regularly held occultic seances, during which time they communicated with demons who were either masquerading as a dead person or who were just appearing as their guiding spirits. Dietrich Eckhart, Alfred Rosenberg, and Adolf Hitler invoked the Antichrist into manifestation at the mediumistic seances of the Thule group in Munich. Eckhart believed that he had been told by his guiding spirit he would have the privilege of training the coming Great One, the Antichrist. From the beginning of their association, Eckhart believed Hitler was Antichrist. So there you go. Long story short, looks like they were doing seances to get information on all kinds of stuff from other worlds and past lives and whatever, to get information on things like anti-gravity, cold fusion, and whatnot. It's a fascinating story, really, if you want to get into the whole Nazi fascination with the occult and whatnot. But is this all involved in our Thule Air Force, quote unquote, Space Force base? We don't really know, but we know a lot about this place, and it seems pretty suspect. Now, I'm not really sure if this is why President Trump brought attention to this area in particular, or if this was for something else. And who knows, maybe they're just wanting to buy this to get the, as we know, there's uranium, there's zinc there, there's a lot of minerals to be ored there, and I'm certain that the United States would like to compete with China, really in any aspect as far as that goes. So there's a lot of reasons there as to why President Trump might have been bringing it up. And the reason I brought up with this Greta Thunberg was I have a feeling that more people like her are going to start sparking some ideas in the region there, that in case the U.S. does want to get their hand on that land, they're going to come up with some benevolent reason why it would make Trump look ugly for doing so, which makes me wonder what's underneath that land. Are we actually talking about some ancient things being unearthed as this ice begins to melt? We do know that really in the early 1900s, World War I, World War II, we have a lot of planes that have disappeared there too. So a lot of that can still be recovered. There's still a lot of those planes over there that are laying around on the land out there somewhere. So this is a very interesting story. I thought it might be kind of fun to share it with you. And that's all I've got for you today. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who do that already. And if you're new to my channel, welcome to you. Please understand that from time to time, you're going to get unclicked, unnotified, and unsubscribed. And it's okay. You don't need to let me know. I'm already aware of it. Just do me a favor and come on back and click back, re-notify yourself, resubscribe yourself, redo whatever you've got to do. And I highly suggest bookmarking one of my pages so it can kind of help you find my stuff in the future, as you will probably not be notified. All my alternate links are down below. Gab, BitChute, Brighteon.com, DropSpace. I'm over at Twitter at IPOT1776. That's IPOT1776. And all those links are down below. If you'd like to email me with some information, my email is down below. And my P.O. box is down below if you're old school. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below as well. All those links are down below in the video description, as some of the links that we talk about in today's show. All right, this is Sir Patrick Mack. And until next time, stay focused.